Okay. Good evening and welcome everyone to the Bowie, Mitchellville, and Vicinity Master Plan Community Chat for Land Use, Zoning, and Urban Form. My name is Thomas Lester with the Prince George's County Planning Department Long Range Planning Section, and I'm the project manager for this master plan. Okay, first I'd like to say before we begin that the presentation and Q&A will be recorded and posted online. A copy of the PowerPoint will also be posted on our website for download. We ask that during the presentation, you keep your microphone muted and your camera off until called upon. However, you may ask questions and provide comments using the chat box. Please be polite in your questions and comments. Now let's introduce the project team. I'm joined today by Andrew McCrae, Deputy Project Manager, and Scott Rowe, Project Facilitator, as well as team members Kenny Terzgek, Brian Bird, and Garrett Dickerson. Garrett will also be tonight's moderator and will monitor the chat box for questions and comments. I also want to acknowledge the following elected official, the Honorable Ingrid Harrison, at-large council member for the City of Bowie. For tonight's agenda, we will first present a quick overview of the project, followed by a more detailed look at the findings regarding land use, zoning, and urban form from the existing conditions report, and then we will roll into the question and answer portion of the meeting. Let's take a look at the schedule. The County Council formally initiated the master plan process on February 18th, 2020, and then it was publicly kicked off on June 13th. Since then, the project team has worked with a consultant and the community and stakeholders to produce an existing conditions report, which is currently online for public comment until September 30th. In the coming months, we will continue our community chat series covering each of the plan elements. And then we will prepare a playbook of strategies that addresses many of the challenges and opportunities identified in order to inform a draft master plan that will be presented to the public next year. We will then continue through the legislative process with an anticipated planning board adoption date in December of 2021 and district council approval in spring of 2022. The master plan area is in the northeast portion of the county. It is southeast of Laurel, west of Maryland 193, north of Upper Marlboro, and abuts the Patuxent River to the east. It includes the city of Bowie and portions of Mitchellville and Collington. The master plan will primarily focus on the future of existing commercial and employment areas, such as the Bowie Local Town Center, Bowie State University, Bowie State Mark Station, Campus Center, Old Town Bowie, and Collington Trade Zone. It will also focus on 3 corridors, Maryland 197, Maryland 450, and US 301, Maryland 3. The 2 main goals of the Bowie, Mitchellville, and Vicinity Master Plan are to advance the policies outlined in the county's general plan, Plan 2035, and to provide specific implementable strategies to meet the vision of the plan area. The vision will be crafted with input from the community and other stakeholders to create a long-term plan for this area of the county. Once approved, it will replace the 2006 Bowie and Vicinity Master Plan and the 2010 Bowie State Mark Station Sector Plan. A quick recap, on September 16th, we held our draft existing conditions report presentation. This presentation provided an overview of the report. We also formed small discussion groups to talk about the challenges and opportunities for the plan area. Also, please note that the full report is currently on our website for public and agency comment. Please continue to provide comments until September 30th. You can place your comments directly on the report using our online tool called Conveo, or you can submit your comments via email. The website also allows you to download the report by section in PDF format. Unfortunately, you cannot download the entire file at once due to file size. Each master plan is made up of 8 plan elements: economic prosperity, housing and neighborhoods, land use, transportation and mobility, community heritage, culture and design, healthy communities, public facilities, and natural environment. Tonight, we will take a closer look at land use. Now, I'll pass it to Brian to hear specifically about land use.
Thank you, Thomas. So the existing conditions report looked at land use, zoning, and urban form based on the Plan 2035 general plan. vision, as well as pattern, density, buildings, zoning, and connectivity. Next slide. The land use vision. So future land use should be based on the Plan 2035 General Plan guiding principles, which concentrate future growth in designated centers, prioritize and focus resources, build on Prince George's County strengths and assets, create choice communities, connect our neighborhoods and significant places, and protect and value our natural resources. Thomas, would you now like to switch us to the land use map, please? So here we're going to take a look at one of the maps that was prepared for the existing conditions report, so everyone has a better idea of what we're exactly talking about. So as you can see, this is actually the map is of the Bowie and Mitchell vicinity planning area, and you can see that these are the 4 primary focus areas for the plan itself. So on the south, we have the Collington Trade Zone. In the east, we have the Bowie Local Town Center. And to the north, we have Bowie State University, Bowie Mark Campus Center, and Old Town Bowie. Thank you, Thomas. Next slide. So land use pattern. Land in the master plan area is primarily occupied by low density residential uses, including rural and agricultural, and parks and open space. Together, these uses represent 62% of the master plan area's acreage. Residential land use in the master plan area is almost exclusively single-family detached housing as a share of total land use. The county has more mixed use and multifamily developments, as well as rural and agricultural land use is concentrated in the growth management area east of US 301 and MD3 Crane Highway. Next slide. So now we're looking at map 2, which shows the existing land uses. So we have a breakdown of all the different types of land uses. And we will be sharing this link to the existing conditions report where you can actually see all these maps on the report itself. So land use density. Most of Bowie's residential areas have a dwelling unit density between 1.1 and 7.9 units per acre. Much of the residential development since 2012 in the master plan area has been of very low density residential housing under 3.5 dwelling units per acre. Now, Thomas, can you go to the next 2 maps? So this map is basically showing us the dwelling units per acre, the density. As you can see, the darker the area, the more dense it is. Okay, thank you, Thomas. And here's several different examples of single family dwelling units in 2 different density forms. So the top one is slightly more dense, and then the lower one is slightly less dense. Land use buildings. The report also looked at buildings. Bowie Mitchell and vicinity has seen 2 periods of sustained development in its history. The first came in the early 1960s during the post-war suburban building boom, lasting in Bowie through the early 70s. And a second and more sustained building boom began in the mid-1980s, lasting until the Great Recession in 2008. A notable pattern in construction history is that commercial, office, and industrial development in the master plan area has favored large lots since the early 1980s. In terms of ownership, a majority of the master plan area is privately owned, about 71% of the area's total acreage. The remaining 29% of the master plan's acreage is publicly owned. Next slide. Land use connectivity. A low-density urban form such as that seen in the master plan area perpetuates car dependency. In general, a personal vehicle is required for master plan area residents to live comfortably and access jobs. Connectivity is low throughout the planning area, except for older areas like the city of Bowie. In the report, we completed a link node ratio analysis in Bowie Mitchell and vicinity maps. And the link node ratio is the master plan area is defined as the number of links, the road segments between intersections and nodes intersections. A perfect grid, or a very well-connected area, has a link node ratio of 2.5, whereas suburban areas with cul-de-sacs and other dead ends will have lower link node ratios, typically between 1 and 1.5. The link node ratio is uniformly high in the city of Bowie, particularly in the historic Levittown, relative to other parts of the master plan area. Link node ratios in the city of Bowie range between 1.5 and 2.3 in most areas. Next slide. A majority of the master plan area is zoned for low density suburban development or open space. Most of the master plan area is now built out to the extent of the current zoning code. A pattern that has emerged in lower density residential zoning classes tend to overlap significantly with other uses, especially open space. Since 2007, there have been 11 zoning map amendments in the master plan area. Now, Thomas, can you go to map 5 from the report? So here's our existing zoning map. As you can see, there's quite a lot of uses throughout the planning area. And as we said earlier, we do have several links on the PowerPoint, and Garrett will be sharing the link for the report. So you can access all these maps yourself. Okay, thank you so much. Now we're getting to the more informal part of the presentation tonight. It is a community chat. So essentially the idea is we'd really like as much participation as possible from all the community members that have joined us tonight. And we just have a series of questions. Garrett will also be helping moderate the conversation. Garrett, are you there?
I'm here, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Garrett. So Garrett will help with monitoring the chat box. So you can either unmute your mic and help answer questions, or feel free to respond or engage via the chat box, and Garrett will be helping us with that. So the first question we have for you all tonight is, how can Bowie, Mitchellville, and vicinity best accommodate anticipated growth? Curious if anyone has any thoughts out there. Feel free to jump right in. Any takers?
Yes, trying to figure out where the chat.
Okay. Or feel free to speak up too.
Oh, okay. This is Beverly Simmons. I have a question regarding the growth along road in Mitchellville area. There's a lot of walking on these roads, and a lot of bikes on these roads. And it is so alarming to me that I really want to pick up people, because they're literally walking all the time to the grocery store, which is way at Safeway. And they walk about I would say about 2 miles down Church Road going towards, where's the other, before 214, but they're walking. And my whole question is, keep building and building and building. Everyone does not have cars.
Yes.
But there's tons of walkers. If you go in the morning time, you will see them. They're at different times, but they're generally carrying groceries. So that tells me that they don't have cars.
Yes.
My question is, we're doing all of this development, and we're not considering sidewalks for people to walk safely. And from Los Angeles, I went through this whole build phase where it was a lot of land at one time, and now it's no land. You can't even pay for a lot in Los Angeles anymore. But that's what I'm watching happening right in Bowie and Prince George's County. But people do not build sidewalk for people to walk on, and that's my concern.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beverly. I think that's a really great point. I don't know if anyone from the team wants to answer that question. I will say, based on what we're working on now, we are looking a lot at trying to make more walkable, more connected areas within the planning area. That is definitely a priority within the plan itself.
And I would just add that within our master plan analysis, we do have a sidewalk layer. So we do keep track of where sidewalks are missing. And a big part of this process is, making recommendations where sidewalks are most critical.
Okay. So I do see a comment in the chat box from Mary. Does Bowie Mitchellville vicinity include the area along Route 193 that runs between Route 450 and Route 301? Would anybody like to answer that?
Thomas?
I can answer it if you
Yeah,
want.
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
That's okay. The plan includes uh, the east side of Maryland 193 between 450 and um, down to basically First Baptist Church of Glenarden, and then it follows the southern boundary follows Leland Road.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, Scott is one of the additional members as well of the Bowie team. Real quick, Garrett, what other links did you put in there for the audience?
I put up the YouTube link for the Bowie Town Center. I also put up the link for the Bowie Vicinity Conveyo site. And I also put up the master plan within the chat box as well. We have another question or comment from Miss Billy Hall. Let's see if I can make this out. It says, unsafe to walk of any part of Church Road. I meant it's not safe to walk on any part of Church Road.
Okay,
I'd like to address that.
thank you, Millie. Looks like we have one more comment there, Garrett.
Did you want to address that one first, or here we go?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Millie that, and to Beverly that, yes, part of the intent of the plan is to really look at connectivity issues, at walkability. This is all coming out of recommendations from the Plan 2035, which is the county's general plan adopted in 2014. And that talks a lot about connectivity and the importance of active transportation, really making our streets safer for all users, not just the automobile, but for pedestrians and for bicyclists as well.
Right. Let's go on to Stephanie Jones regarding walkability again. Are there any plans to expand public transportation services and bus service in Bowie, Mitchellville, and vicinity? Or is public transportation out of scope for this project?
Yeah, I can take that one. With public transportation, one of the things that has come out of the existing conditions report is that there is some inadequacies with the bus routes and timing, and also, I guess, the conditions of the bus stops themselves. So it's definitely something that we're taking a look at, and the master plan will make recommendations on where transportation can be expanded.
Okay. And then what about bike lanes?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely take a look at bike lanes. There is a capital improvement program that I guess that anticipates funding for different capital projects, and bike lanes are usually on that list. Specifically, right now, I can't think of where, but they are included.
Great. Okay, we have another question from Jessica S. How much of a priority is non-car transportation issues to this plan?
Did you want to take that, Thomas, or you want me to?
Sorry, I'm thinking. You can take it.
Well, I will just say once again that the entire plan, the Plan 2035 adopted in 2014 really addresses a lot of these issues and challenges. And so the Bowie Mitchellville Vicinity Master Plan is definitely looking at non-car transportation as well. That is very important to look at and consider, and make the community more connected.
So I can follow up on that, Brian.
Thank you.
So as part of this master plan, we'll be looking at a lot of the data dealing with traffic, with transit ridership, looking at bicycle and pedestrian use, and the entire network, and making recommendations to fill in the gaps that we identify in the network. Biking is at a all-time high right now, as is people walking. The incidences of people that are eligible to get driver's license not getting driver's license intentionally is increasing, and we're looking certainly at ways to not only fill in the gaps and create safer, more direct ways for people to access their destinations through transit, biking, and walking, but also identifying where new development should go and how it should be designed so that people can make multiple trips without having to use their car. And so out of this plan, we'll make recommendations for all manner of transportation improvements towards that goal. I think that we've reached a point where a lot of the new development that's occurred over the past 15 years has been required to construct sidewalks and bicycle amenities, but where you have gaps between new developments and you have older developments, you have older properties that haven't been improved, you have those gaps in the network. And of course, everyone knows Church Road is one of those corridors where we have a lot of gaps in the bicycle and pedestrian network. And so those are things that we're definitely looking at as part of this plan.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Real quick, let's try to switch over to some of the individuals that have their hands raised. Thank you for bringing that up, whoever mentioned that. I know that it looks like Alexis has had her hand up for a while. Did you have anything to say, Alexis?
Yes, hi.
Thank you. Sorry for waiting.
No, that's okay. I just need y'all to put it where the goats can get it. So the question where you say what areas should be preserved, what do you mean by that? Is that meaning that you're taking away something and replacing it with something? Does that mean like you're thinking about doing something with the town center different than what it looks like today? I mean, I just need to understand what the goal is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alexis. That's a great question. Scott or Thomas, did you want to answer that?
I can take it. So when we're looking at a plan for any part of Prince George's County, we're always looking at where are the best locations within an area for growth to occur to meet increasing demand for people that want to live or work in Prince George's County. Along with that comes a responsibility to make sure that we're identifying proactively what areas need to be preserved, whether they're environmentally sensitive. We're always looking for opportunities to identify new locations for public parks, identifying areas that they may not have the capacity to support a lot of development, or a lot of development may not make sense in those particular areas. And also in keeping with Plan 2035 and the county's resource conservation plan, this plan basically considers everything east of US 301 that's in the county's rural and agricultural area to be kind of it's one of the county's priority preservation areas, and we don't see a need to evaluate those areas for potential growth beyond maintaining the rural and agricultural character that's out there. So we're always looking for opportunities not only to preserve land for its own sake, but also identifying opportunities where connections can be made of open space, whether it's in our green infrastructure network of sensitive environmental areas or in our parks network, our trails network, preserving land that way. In our centers like the Bowie State Mark Station and the Bowie Local Town Center, that could be finding opportunities for public open space. It's important that as development occurs, that we're being environmentally sensitive to that as well and mitigating all the impacts that could occur.
Awesome.
Thank you, Scott.
I see Beverly Simmons had her hand up for a while. Do you have any comments that you would like to add to this conversation?
No, actually somebody answered it partially, but of course, you know that school, whenever you have the growth, if you're going all the way to 2035, school is always a question that's in there. And I know with COVID-19, seems like everything has backed up, but our schools is a concern with the growth in the area. We just want to know what is the plan for that.
Okay.
Thank you, Beverly. Alexis, did you still have any other, was your hand is still up? Okay. And then,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. And then I noticed that Tamika, you had asked about whether you should ask a question or post it in the chat box. Did you have a question?
I do have a question. I just saw that there were a few hands raised, so I just wanted to make sure that they were addressed first.
Okay, thank you.
But to answer the question here, so we talked already about a few ways that we can accommodate anticipated growth, right? And we talked about bike lanes and sidewalks are key. And I noticed that in some cities overseas, they use no car zones where they create plazas where people can go and they can have dinner and they can walk around without worrying about cars, and the kids can kind of be out and interacting with each other. I think that that might be something that we can consider maybe in Old Town. If we're looking at areas where we could accommodate future growth, I think Old Town Bowie is a great opportunity for us to fashion it after, maybe Old Town Alexandria or some of those European cities where they have those kinds of plazas. Also by the by Bowie State. So I know a lot of the kids don't live on campus, so they might be able to accommodate higher density housing for the students or for the graduate students if they're open to that idea. And then we talked a little bit about increased buses. I know in some places like in Baltimore and in Old Town Alexandria, they do trolleys where people can get around and shop. And it's free, and that way they can get to the supermarket, they can get to the stores without having to use their cars.
Yeah, thank you, Tamika. That's a lot of great points. Thank you so
Would
much.
anybody like to address that, her comments there? Or?
I think they're all great comments, Tamika. I think definitely there's lots of opportunities for creative solutions and looking at what other cities and what other parts of the world have done as far as accommodating growth and creating places that are livable and placemaking, creating places, a sense of place as well. I think that's very important.
So I can address a couple of the questions, if you don't mind. As far as how we plan for schools, it's fairly straightforward process. Through the course of this plan, we will look at a number of things: the current population growth factors, opportunities, where opportunities for growth occur and exist, identify or estimate, at least best we can, how many households will exist in Bowie, Mitchellville, and vicinity by the year 2045. And the county has and regularly updates a series of pupil yield factors. And what those are is basically a fairly accurate account of how many school children are generated by each type of dwelling unit. And that gives us a potential school enrollment for the build out year of 2045. So, and I'm just throwing numbers out here to illustrate. If we anticipate that there would be 2,000 new households in Bowie in 2045, and each household produces 0.14 elementary school students, we'd be able to estimate, and those of you who are good at math can do the math on that, we'd be able to estimate how many school children that those houses could possibly produce. And then once we get to a certain level, there are possibility to recommend new school facilities. We also we work very closely with Prince George's County Public Schools to gather and to constantly analyze those data, and it is quite challenging. A lot of times, the way school overcrowding is easiest to address is through redistricting the schools, which comes with its own challenges and issues, and also school enrollment fluctuates by generation. By the time you have an overcrowded school, sometimes by the time you plan and construct a new school, the overcrowding situation is ameliorated because that generation of kids have moved on to the middle school or the high school. So we do continuously plan for that. So I wanted to make that point. I wanted to make another point, but I forgot it because I talked too much.
That's okay. Thank you, Scott. So we're gonna move to 3 more in the chat box, and then I'm gonna call on somebody with their hand raised.
Garrett,
Yes.
I remembered what it was. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
So Plan 2035 identifies the area around the Bowie State MARC Station as a campus center where we want to concentrate future growth. We've been working, we as a Prince George's County has been working very closely with the state of Maryland to get transit-oriented development designation from the Maryland Department of Transportation, which would, if successful, provide some grants, access to funding programs to facilitate redevelopment at the university. We've been partnering very closely with Bowie State University and Dr. Bro on this plan, and that it really is, we're really envision that we'll be carrying forward the vision of the 2010 sector plan, which is to create that student housing, graduate student housing, housing for professionals, or housing for people that want to commute to Washington or Baltimore. It's the Bowie State MARC station is halfway between Washington and Baltimore, and a great opportunity for commuters. So that is something that we'll continue to work with the university on throughout this plan and beyond.
Thanks again, Scott. Okay, so I'm gonna move to Mary. Are new homes proposed or coming to the area along Route 193 near where it intersects with the overpass of Route 50? I believe somebody's looking that up right now.
Yeah, you can tell I'm looking at the and for those of you who are participating, the Prince George's County Planning Department has a wonderful tool called www.pgatlas.com, which is a mapping site that contains a lot of information, more information that you'd ever want to know about Prince George's County, in map form. I don't. Yeah, I'm going to jinx myself here, but I don't. There's not a lot of locations around 197 and Route 50 that are that are large enough to support development. There are a couple of sites where development's been approved in the past but might not have been built, and that's something that we see throughout the area. No, that's the Bowie Health Campus. So I would say that the area of the Bowie Town Center Shopping Center and some of the retail places along Route 301 there, kind of in that triangle between 50, 197, and 301, that are identified by the general plan as a center for Prince George's County. We could anticipate that we'll see more residential demand there because of the location and the amenities that exist around the interchange. Specifically, there's not a lot of opportunity there, not a lot of land there. Also, with the proximity of the hospital and some of the medical uses that are there, that might be a good location as we go through the plan for additional medical office space.
Okay. So Beverly Simmons wants to ask, what about schools and first floor homes for the handicapped?
Well, I can talk about the first floor homes for the handicap. I guess, as we know, that the population of Bowie is aging, and I think as the residential base does grow, developers will look towards what people need, and I think that will identify the need for accessible homes for aging residents.
Okay.
And a couple things to note about schools that came out of the existing conditions report was utilization rates. And the majority of the schools are either at utilization or just below. There are 3 elementary schools that are above utilization rates, but overall, at this moment in time, overcrowding isn't necessarily an issue.
So I'm gonna move to my last question in the chat box for now before going back over to the hands that are raised. What is the status of the development of the new Bowie ice rink? What alternate development plans are being considered should the project fall through?
That one might be for Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, I was just I was just about to answer the question. That's a great question. So the ice rink project that was being built on Church Road has been canceled, and we are currently looking at putting some additional funding into the current ice rink, which is at Allen Pond. So we haven't, we talked about building basketball courts on the old Iceplex site, which is on Church Road. However, we have pushed that back to, make a determination after budget is looked at in early next year. So we'll keep you abreast of everything that's going on with that and any decisions that we make. But if you have any questions or anything like that, you can always contact me or any of the council members personally.
Thank you, Councilman Harrison. Let's go to Jessica with their hands was raised. Jessica S.
Hello. I was wondering about the small business focus that you all have on developing or publicizing the growth of Bowie Mitchellville. I noticed that we don't have that many specifically food small businesses that exist in, like, besides the Hall Road area that I'm specifically in. I don't really see too much development or support for small businesses to acquire land or to acquire property space to thrive in Bowie. So I was wondering if that's an aim or focus that is a priority for this plan. Thank you.
I would say it's something that we're definitely looking at as part of our economic prosperity element. We're always looking for opportunities to where small businesses can thrive. As far as business operations, business support, recruitment, retention, attraction of small businesses, the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation is the lead agency that kind of works with small businesses to locate within the county. The city also has an economic development function that seeks to attract small businesses and keep them here. What we look at as comprehensive planners really are creating the environment where small businesses can thrive. And sometimes that means identifying locations where you have retail spaces that shouldn't redevelop. Sometimes when a retail space gets old, there's an impetus to redevelop it. And what that does is sometimes it prices out a startup business, a mom and pop business, or another small business. So looking at strategically where can small businesses thrive, identifying spaces that may be underutilized or abandoned that could prove as incubator space for small businesses. I know that it would be great to have more small business activity in Old Town Bowie to rejuvenate that part of the city. And making sure that the communities that are being built now and into the future are attractive places that a business would want to locate and where workers would want to live, and where people would want to shop or patronize that business. It's really challenging when you get a lot of new development. A lot of times with brand new things, the rents are too high to support small businesses. And so it's really looking at preserving what exists, preserving the conditions that allow small businesses to thrive rather than pricing them out through redevelopment. And that's what we try to do through our plans. We partner closely over the course of the plan with our economic development partners with Prince George's County and the city to identify what some of those issues are. And we also have heard or will hear from a few small businesses to try to figure out, why it's important to us to know, why do businesses want to locate in Bowie, Mitchellville, and vicinity, and what can we do in the limited policy making realm that we have to keep them here.
Thank you, Scott. In the interest of time, would it be possible to, if everyone could save their questions for the end of the meeting, which will be in about 15 minutes? As well, there are many opportunities to engage with the team throughout the whole process, including office hours. We'll share a lot of information with you all at the closing about how you can directly ask us questions and engage. Thomas, can you please move to slide number 2, or to question number 2? So market trends are showing increased consumer preference for multifamily and attached housing in close proximity to amenities. Where do you think such development should or should not occur? So really curious about all your feedback on these specific questions that will really help guide this process, they'll help guide the process. So curious if anyone had any answers to that question or any thoughts.
We probably should stay in the order that some of these questions were received. I know people still had their hands up in the.
Yeah, that's fine. We can still address those questions. I just wanted to get us to question 2, see if there are any thoughts on this. But yeah, feel free to.
Right. Let's go with Stephanie Jones.
Hello. Regarding those market trends that are showing the preference for multifamily housing and attached housing, do you also have data on the family makeup of the folks that are buying those homes? Is it mainly single people with no children or partnered people with no children? Because the trends that I've seen in my local neighborhood is that the bulk of the families that are moving into multifamily and attached housing do not have children and thus have no interest in improving any services that would benefit families with children.
Yeah, I don't know if we've looked at the data of who's moving into those locations or that type of housing. I think I recall reading, and this is anecdotal, but millennials favoring the multifamily and the townhouse type development.
All right, so let's see. We had some hands up. I guess they went down. So we're gonna go back to the chat box. Unless, wait, I see Tamika's hand is back up. Tamika, you had a question or a comment?
No, I was going to answer the question on the screen here. So looking at market trends, and we think about where we want to put those kind of higher density houses, right? I think we've been talking a little bit about the Bowie town center, right? And then maybe even if we're looking at the Old Town Bowie, might be a good place to think about that, and the college. And where it should not occur, right, is these older neighborhoods with majority single family homes. And when you put in high density housing with the 2-lane roads and the communities around them, they don't make sense. And so we're thinking about Levitt, Old Bowie, right over here by the high school, and then thinking about Church Road. So making sure that the communities that currently exist and are flourishing in Bowie, that they stay that way.
Okay.
So let me go back to the chat box here. Queen Anne off of 193 for growth. Church Road should be preserved. And Church Road is a historical road. True, a lot of land by Bowie and the state, I believe. Right? And this is by Beverly Simmons. Do you all ever think about our neighbors are sending their children to private schools due to the conditions of public schools? So most have to pay taxes and private school costs.
I can try to answer that one fairly shortly. We anticipate and plan for every single child in Prince George's County to go to Prince George's County Public Schools in case it happens.
And one
As
thing
far
about
as parental decisions to send their children to private schools, you know, that's a choice that people make. That you know, is beyond the scope of a plan like this.
Okay. I believe this question was answered by you, Scott. Mary, when she said that, you know, mistakenly addressed 197. So I think we're gonna keep moving.
I didn't answer that one. I did mishear the question and talked about 197. It's 193. There are a couple of. Sorry, I moved my map here. Just a second. There are a couple of. Well, there's one particular residential development that was approved in 2017 for 133 single-family lots on the northeast side of that of the underpass of Route 50 and 193. Other than that, it looks like most of the properties there either have homes on them or have been previously subdivided for homes. That's about it for that particular location.
Okay. So we have Jessica S. Her hand is raised. If you would like to comment. Okay. Okay. Did you have anything to say, Jessica S.? Okay. So we'll go back to the chat box. No worries.
It looks like Stephanie Jones had a question.
Okay.
Thanks. You just mentioned that development was approved in 2017 for the northeast section of 193 and Route 50. Just looking at a map, that looks like it's zoned as Northeast Branch Park. So was the plan to replace the park with housing?
What I'll do is I can share my screen and show on the map what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It's taking a while because we got a typo on the map here, but the property that I'm referring to is right here along Route 50. And this is the 193 underpass, I believe. And so kind of give everyone this is the golf course down here, and this is Route 50 going east and west, 193 going north and south. And this property here, it's been approved for development a couple of times. First, they were approved for looks like a housing, then something else, and then housing again, but it currently has an approved preliminary plan for 133 lots. Right here at this property here.
Okay, so it looks like there's a park there currently. Is that what you're saying as well? Northeast Branch Park? And again, this is relevant to the preservation question.
Sure. Not at this specific location. Let me turn off the development activity layer.
Yeah, because that's just at the bottom of where Glendale Road comes around and meets Enterprise.
That's a little bit farther north from where we're looking. Tell you what, let's go on to the next question. I'll look up Northeast Branch Park and try to show that relationship on the map.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, no problem. I believe Millie Hall. Oh, go ahead.
Come on.
I'm just saying, I see the park. If you Google it on Google Maps, it takes you to Northeast Branch Park.
Okay.
But I can't tell.
I'll look into it. Let's go to the next question. I will come back to that.
Yeah. Millie Hall, you had your hand raised.
I think you left the subject, but I want to address it because it kind of hurt my feelings. I think it was Scott mentioned the school situation. When we came out here in '98 and built a home, we expected to go into the schools, but there was 25 kids in a classroom. So we went up homeschooling and then private school. So it's not what you said. I didn't really like that because it's like no one really cares. You just say anything when it comes to the students. And there was kids that went to school with my daughter. By the time they got out and she got out, she had all these choices and they didn't because they was in these overcrowded classrooms. And to say that you make that choice, I made that choice because I want my daughter to have a great education. To do homeschool and spend all that money, then do private school, spend all that money, and we're still paying taxes, is really not fair. And people, they continue to build, and you just don't think about the future of our children. My daughter's now 31, and I hear the same conversations. And I heard people then say that we had this conversation with our daughter at the kitchen table. Now we're having it with our granddaughter. So we can't just keep sliding this over and thinking you can just say anything to us when it comes to the schools. People keep building and building. We need to think about schools for the kids. And they keep saying it's not overcrowded. That's not true. I volunteered at the school too to help the kids because they would literally say, Miss Hall, please don't leave. When you leave, it's not really good. I don't want to say what they said, but I had to spread my time out between my daughter, my husband working nights, and we're doing homeschool and still helping the kids at the schools because the parents are working. So to say that we make that choice, yeah, we make that choice, but we have to too, if we want our kids to have good education. So I just think someone needs to really take some time out and think about this and stop just telling us anything. And I'm sorry to go on, but I've been feeling this for years because my daughter is now 31 years old and I'm still hearing the exact same things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Hall. So we're gonna go on to Mary. Mary,
Yeah.
Are you there?
Looks like she answered in the chat box.
Okay, so let's Miss Beverly Simmons.
Okay, and yes, to piggyback on that, that's the reason why I asked the question. If there are 101 homes in our neighborhood, a good 80 of them send their kids to private school. And they send their kids to private school, they said, because of the conditions of the public schools. Now, we have grandchildren, 3 and 4 and 5 years old in our home. They will soon be going off to school. Millie is right. That's the reason why I asked the question. But she is right in saying that that question was brushed off. And I felt the same way. So you all really need to look at that. And I don't know if people don't even know that the majority of households are sending their kids to private schools, but it's a majority of our neighborhood. And so we really need to address that. Why are people sending their children to private schools instead of the public school? Why? And I just need that question needs to stay on our agenda, and we need to have a good talk with the parents.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and read this comment by Jessica S. I would agree with Millie. As a former student for 13 years at PGCPS, overcrowding is an issue and a resources. How are libraries and other centers accommodating for COVID-19? Are not there for students to even be successful post PGCPS? So let's go back to the hands raised. I believe Ms. Hall, do you have another comment or?
No.
Okay. And then Mary, do you have another comment?
So I will say real quick, to be respectful to everyone's time, I recommend that Thomas would finish just the general information on the Bowie-Mitchellville and Vicinity Master Plan, and then we can all stay on if anyone wants to stay on to have more questions answered.
We can go to
Thomas,
the
you're on mute.
Or Thomas.
I love it when that happens. No, we have two different types of upcoming events. We have the series of community chats, which we started this week. And we also have a virtual presentation regarding our playbook of strategies. We have 6 more community chats, 1 for each plan element. Our next one is next Wednesday on September 30th. And the focus for that one will be housing and neighborhoods. Again, each chat will last approximately 1 hour. These are pretty informal, as you can tell, but they do offer a good chance to ask questions regarding the topic that most interests you. And you can register for these on our website, where the full schedule is posted. And then going to our playbook of strategies, we're also planning a presentation. This is scheduled for November 12th. And the playbook of strategies will be a document that reviews the data and feedback received from the community, and also creates urban design schemes to help meet the challenges at key nodes. And then lastly, we still have a little bit of time, but if you haven't already, we do ask that you take 10 minutes today to complete the 2020 census forms online or by phone. Your response to the census will help shape the future of your community and direct federal funds for schools, roads, and other public services over the next 10 years. So you can visit my2020census.gov or call 844-330-2020. And lastly, please note that today's presentation will be posted on our project website, along with the contact information for the project team. And feel free to contact us if you have any other questions or if there's something that we haven't gotten to answer today.
Thomas, if we have a second, I would like to address the school issue. I very much appreciate everyone's comments, and I certainly want to make what I said clear, because I don't want anyone to leave this process. I very much appreciate people taking their time to participate in our plan, and we really want you to participate moving forward. The point that I was trying to make, and maybe I didn't do it in the best way, is that when we plan for future growth and for residential growth in the community, we are assuming that all of the students are attending, that would be generated by such growth will be attending the public schools. And then we work with Prince George's County Public Schools to identify what capacity they have to accommodate the students, and to work with them to identify locations for new schools if that's what's needed. Certainly, on a personal level, appreciate discussions of school choice. I'm a parent, and I certainly make my residential decision based on on school choice. And I know that that's an incredibly important issue in Prince George's County. This plan can look at a lot of things. It can identify a lot of things. The decision points and the reasons why Prince George's County Public Schools attracts or doesn't attract students, and why people want to enroll children in public schools. That's absolutely something we need to hear from the community. And we're partnering very closely with Prince George's County Public Schools on that. And I'm interested to hear, I think we had a community chat on public facilities earlier this week. But certainly the education of our youth is an economic prosperity issue. It's a healthy communities issue. It touches all parts of a plan for any community. And so we very much want to hear from you about this issue and how we can address it through this particular effort. We cannot, this is not an effort to change school boundaries, which is one of the solutions. It's not an effort to address challenges that Prince George's County Public Schools may have as far as their operations. But what we do want to do through this plan is to identify what the impact of new development will be on the classrooms. And we start with those existing conditions, which, as Thomas points out, at least three of the schools in our area are overcrowded. And that's something we have to look at. We don't generally want to, if there's going to be growth, then there has to be available capacity in the public schools. That's part of the adequacy of public facilities that we look for when we do a plan. Is it a perfect process? No. Does it cost a lot of money to build a school? Yes. But we absolutely want to look at that as part of the plan, and I very much appreciate everyone's input. And I think, I can speak for the team. We're really curious to hear what we can do in this comprehensive planning process to address your concerns about this. I think it would be very interesting for us and very interesting and overdue for us to identify ways that through a plan like this that focuses on land use and the environment and policies around transportation and economic prosperity, how we can, and public facilities, how we can start to create, like we said, a community of choice, a community where people want to live, and a community where people want to enroll their children in the public schools. And that's an ongoing conversation. A lot of it's larger than this plan, but if we can be the conduit for that communication with the Board of Education, we certainly would welcome that. And again, I certainly didn't mean to diminish anyone's experience or anyone's situation. I just was trying to point out that we try to assume that everyone's going to attend public school so that we have the maximum possible recommendations for enhancing school capacity to meet future growth. Thomas, what's the next step here?
You mean for the conclusion of the meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're out of time, but we definitely appreciate the feedback. We've heard a lot of good things. I am going to try. I see there's a comment about dropping the links, so I'm going to try and drop this one in here real quick. So this one's the existing conditions report. And yeah. So feel free to email me or sign up for our office hours and join our community chats because we have 6 more. So I appreciate it.
Any other questions before we go, or no?
Nope.
Looks like Mary and Millie both have questions.
Mary?
Mary, you're still muted. Oh, there you go.
No, I don't have a question. My hand ain't been up by mistake.
Okay, no problem. Ms. Hall, Millie Hall?
I don't have a question either. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Wait, Stephanie, do you have a question?
Sorry, can you give instructions on how to sign up for the upcoming chat?
So I just dropped the other link to our website right here.
Thomas, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, I was just saying that the website here has the community chats, and I dropped the link into the chat box.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that was everyone with questions, correct? Okay. Well, we want to thank everybody on behalf of the Prince George's Planning Department for everybody coming out tonight and sharing your thoughts and comments and questions. They're very appreciated, and that we will go back and take them and use them for our existing report and share them with the stakeholders, you know, to formulate the rest of the plan. And Thomas has already dropped the links for the websites. And just please stay with us as we continue to progress through this plan. Thank you and have a great night.